Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast Mayday, what's your location? Get the hell out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. This is episode 57, the Deutsche Bank fire in August of 2007. This week's episode is a little bit late as the incident occurred in August of 2007. We usually try to do the episodes in the same month that the incident occurred, but life got in the way and we didn't get it done until September. I hope you enjoy it anyway. Doug, Dirk, and I will review this tragic incident that occurred to one of the best fire services in North America in the abandoned Deutsche Bank high-rise building, 40-some stories tall. So sit back and listen to our review of the NIOSH report of this double line-of-duty death. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Thanks, Paul, for that awesome intro. We're different voice to start it off today. This is Doug. I'm joined here by Dirk and Paul. I guess I did the script, so I'll do the talking. Haha. Gave Paul a break. So yeah, another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Today we're going to talk about a terrible tragedy, double line-of-duty death from New York City in August of 2007. So like I said, Dirk, Paul, and Doug here. What's up, guys? What's new?
Well, a few current events here. We were just talking before we started recording. I saw a post that the General Services Administration in the United States, that's who runs all the government operations and everything, had about 30-some thousand fire inspection deficiencies that haven't been fixed, outstanding. So we're just talking about city growth and stuff like that and how things aren't keeping up with because of all the growth of our cities and the inspection departments and lack of funding and stuff. It ties really good into that Lanahi Maui fire report. Phase 2 is out. ULFSRI is doing that, and I've been studying that over the past couple of days. And it is, I've been writing notes actually for my emergency management class that I'm going to talk to them about. But, you read this and it's classic. There was little to no mitigation for wildland fire, like no crop mitigation, no safety, no fire smarting. It was very little. The government wouldn't fund it. They rejected a $2 million appeal last year or 2 years ago to fund it. The fire service and emergency services and the electric company and stuff all ignored the weather warnings. They were warned. They were sent specific weather warnings saying, hey, we got a hurricane coming. It's going to be dry and it's going to be very windy. It was 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. Like, you can't fight a fire in that. That's just crazy. Anyway, so they had no special preparation. They had no upstaffing. They didn't turn power off. They didn't pre-stage apparatus or anything like that. Many neighborhoods only had one egress to get in or out, and they had locked gates. They had lots of unmarked roads, dead ends, roads that were too narrow. Apparently the roads are too narrow over there. They don't meet the national standard for 28 to 30 feet wide for parking. And there's a lot of high density housing, lots of multiple families living in one house because you can't rent a house there because it's a tourist area. So it's packed. So you can't get in and out. Code enforcement was lacking. The building spacings, there was lots of shacks and ramshackle stuff that didn't meet code and it wasn't enforced. So, all these things contributed to this catastrophic event, which was, as Gordon Graham would say, it was predictable. So anyway, that's my stand on that one. What do you guys say about that? Code enforcement.
First, I want to say hello because I missed you guys. I was gone for a European vacation. Did some research on how shitty our Canadian currency exchange rate is, and the cost of living went up pretty much everywhere. So we're complaining here, but if you have to add another 30% on every bill, that kind of hurts. Anyhow, it was a good trip, quick family vacation for me, a couple of weeks. My family was there for 5 weeks. And then I come back and tweak my back. So that wasn't fun. I still toughed it out, like a good employer, just employee. Just go to work and
Way to
get
go.
shit done.
Hey, speaking of Europe, how about recent fatalities over there? Firefighter fatalities.
Yeah, they are still struggling with a lot of flooding. I heard, and I couldn't believe the number, but they were saying in some parts it was 500 liters per square meter.
Yeah,
Like
I've
that,
seen some big
I
numbers and some
that's a
videos. And
lake.
yeah, it's a lake.
That's unbelievable. At least a small pond, but yeah, it's crazy. So they're
There was
expecting more flooding downstream, so down the Danube River, and then all the Polish rivers, and then the German, the couple they come from Czech Republic, so they are expecting high water levels there. So let's hope that nobody is going to get killed.
Well,
Because
there was
it's
an
pretty
Austrian
tragic.
firefighter that died during rescues apparently a couple days ago.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. That was reported. And then I heard
yeah,
more fatalities, but they weren't too specific if it was fire or not. So
right.
I hope not. But
And then the two Polish firefighters died in a apartment building collapse. Apparently, there was a fire. The fire
yeah,
was started by modified lithium-ion batteries. They kind of recycled them and tried to make them have life again or something. And there'd been fires there before from the same cause. And this
yeah,
time, while fighting the fire, the building collapsed and it killed two Polish
yeah.
firefighters.
Looked like almost like when we're talking about New York here. It almost looked like one of those 5, 6 story big brick buildings, kind of with a wooden attic, and I think the roof collapsed or the floor collapsed on them. So yeah, that was pretty tragic.
We'll have to see if we can get a report and talk about it. How's your Polish?
My Polish sucks more than my English, and but I do have some Polish firefighter contacts there. So and a couple of those guys speak English really well. So then maybe they can get us something. I'll talk to them and see what they
Yeah,
get.
that'd be
It's
good.
still pretty fresh. So I'm not sure how fast they are with investigations. But if they're
Yeah, yeah,
anything like us, then it's gonna take a couple of years, right? But,
yeah. It takes a while for sure.
yeah.
In Canada, you don't even get a report. They don't make it public, but hopefully, maybe Poland will.
We'll see.
Okay, well, that's some current
Well,
events anyway.
not much new with me. I'm slowly trying to tackle a to-do list for the new house and get shelving and get this and get that and whatever. So like one thing a day or every couple days mixed in with work and taking kids to school and preschool or whatever. So my days seem to get full, but I squeezed in a podcast here, which is nice. As for Maui, Paul, I don't know what to say about code enforcement much. I mean, I guess if it should be done, that goes without saying. I'm not a big codes guy, so I don't have much to say about that. But I always kind of roll my eyes when they talk about how they didn't pre-stage apparatus, because I don't know where the reporter thinks this apparatus is supposed to come from. They're an island in the middle of nowhere. Like,
No, they move the apparatus around from one place. It's a big island, so they move
I've been to
apparatus
Maui.
around.
It's not that big of
Yeah.
an island, and the
So
fire
anyway,
department, like, there's one engine over there and one end. Like it, I don't
and
get
the and
where
the,
they think
the
all this should come from.
not only fire, like the power guys didn't
Oh
pre-stage. They didn't
yeah,
shut power
I
off.
can't
The
speak to that.
fire
I don't know
guys,
nothing.
the fire guys. If you read the other report, the state fire marshal's report, they have spare apparatus that you can staff up. Normally here we will staff up. When
Sure, they
it's a
could have
red
been
flag
that.
warning
Yeah,
day or something like that. They did not staff up. They did not man extra stuff, spare trucks. The spare trucks were parked outside empty because of theft. So they actually had to go and draw all the stuff from inventory to load the trucks up to go fight the fire once it got bad. So, those are the kind of things. We can read the reports, and
yeah.
it's just stuff they didn't do. They
Maybe it
ignored the
would be
weather warnings.
a good episode. I mean, no firefighters pass, so it wouldn't be a line of duty death report.
There might be another podcast in the works that's called
Yeah.
the After Action Podcast.
Okay. And we can
Oh,
talk
I
about
heard of
Jasper, right? Because
Yeah.
Jasper,
Exactly. And Fort McMurray and Slave Lake
exactly. Yeah. Let's do that
yeah.
after we've done this here.
Yeah. It requires a bit of work.
Okay, well, how about we get on with today's episode?
Okay.
like we said, it's about New York City. We all know the tragic events of September 11th, 2001, or how it's been come to known as simply 9/11. When the towers eventually came down, they damaged numerous buildings that surrounded the site there, including the Deutsche Bank building at 130 Liberty Street. And sorry about the pronunciation, Dirk. I'm sure I butchered it.
That was pretty good, though.
Mhm.
Yeah. We bug you about your English, but your English is better than my German.
That's probably for sure.
So the owners of the building wanted to demolish the building. However, the insurers of the building wanted to treat it as a recoverable project. So due to this disagreement, work on the building was delayed and the condition of the building kept deteriorating. In 2004, so 4 years after the 9/11, there was finally an agreement reached to settle the disposition of the building. And in 2006, it was announced that the building would be dismantled. So floor by floor.
Yeah, it blows my mind to think that this building is sitting there on the World Trade Center site, which is immense, with the World Trade Center in rubble, and then this building is severely damaged right beside it, and it's sitting there for years with nothing happening. It kind of is crazy, right?
Well, that's the way the bureaucratic legal system works, right?
Yeah.
Nothing goes fast.
Yeah, I know. When that crane fell in Halifax from a hurricane there about 3 years ago, no one would touch it because the crane's resting on another building and it's resting on that building. And if they're demolishing it and it falls and it makes more damage, who's going to pay? Yada, yada. So the city actually declared a state of local emergency for that block and said, we take all responsibility. And then they went ahead and got it demolished, and because the builders and the owners and the insurers wouldn't touch it. So the city had to come over and take excessive power with a state of emergency. So, but that didn't, well, they were already in a state of emergency in New York. So a bit of a 360 here just on the structure, just briefly, just so we know what it looks like. This is the structure was a class 1 fire resistive 40-story high-rise building, which opened in 1974. The building was used as commercial office space for a financial institution, obviously Deutsche Bank. The building occupied a whole city block. It was a curtain wall building that had steel-framed internal structure with 2 sublevels below grade. The exterior facade was covered in glass, and an aluminum curtain wall was attached to the building between each floor. The structure was heavily damaged on September 11, 2001, when a multi-story gash was torn into the north facade, or the alpha side, by the collapse of the surrounding buildings. The structure remained abandoned and open to the elements, allowing it to become contaminated with mold, other contaminants, toxins that you get in buildings built in 1974, asbestos, digoxin, lead, silica, poly or aromatic hydrocarbons, and human remains were also present in the building. The deconstruction and asbestos abatement. The structure was undergoing a floor-by-floor asbestos abatement and deconstruction, which began in March of 2007. On the day of the fire, the structure had been reduced down to 26 stories. It had scaffolding that had been installed all around the building perimeter with that nylon black mesh all around the enclosure on the outboard side of the scaffolding. So you had the mesh, the scaffolding, and then the building. The mesh enclosure was meant to contain falling debris. Deconstruction that started in 2007, but it was actually halted later that year, when a 22-foot section of pipe fell 35 stories and landed on the roof of the FDNY number 10 firehouse, home to engine 10 and ladder 10. 2 firefighters were injured after being struck by the debris. Thankfully not from the pipe itself, because that would definitely take you out.
So yeah, I think 10 House is actually like the neighbor of this building. They're right next door, or right there somewhere. Close enough that a pipe can land on them, I suppose. So as we've stated, this event took place in New York City, which is protected by the FDNY, or Fire Department of New York, which everybody bugs me how much I like and follow the FDNY. I think it's one of the best trained, most experienced fire departments in North America, if not the world. And just for the listeners that might not be as familiar with the FDNY, so the different companies in New York, engine companies, FDNY has unreal staffing on their rigs. Lots of North America has like an officer and 3 firefighters, or an officer and 2 firefighters. New York engine companies have an officer and 4 firefighters, so a crew of 5. There are few that are upstaffed to have an officer and 5 firefighters, and all ladder companies, squad companies, and rescue companies have 1 officer and 5 firefighters. All the chiefs have the chief and an aide with them, all the way up to the chief of department. I think they all have an aide with them. The other difference is a squad company. You'll hear us talk about. Squads in New York respond as engines in their first, second, and third due areas. Beyond that, every working fire will get a squad assigned kind of as like a special unit with a rescue company. They're more trained special operations firefighters, I guess. So anything to add on that stuff there, fellas? Or
I just can't believe that we gave Doug a soapbox for FDNY. I mean, I can't believe we did that, but here it is.
What about the blue card and the Phoenix and the Bruincini and the yellow fire truck? How many soapboxes do you need? I finally get to talk about why one thing.
I got one thing to add when it comes to the rescues. I was told by the chauffeur of Rescue 3 that the rescue companies are the Navy SEALs of the New York Fire Department. So they're called out. They don't always get to work. They are kind of like the ace in the hand of the chief, and they get assigned to whatever. So if an engine company can't make the push, they send the rescue guys in. They're all highly trained, very experienced. They're all technical rescue trained as well, divers. So yeah, they're basically the Navy SEALs of the FDNY. So those are the guys that come to save other firefighters.
It's funny, I've read some books from the FDNY guys, and they all make fun of the rescue until they become one of the rescue guys, and then all of a sudden they're not making fun of the rescue anymore. Anyways, the event, August 18th, 2007, approximately 15:36. This would be Eastern time. A 911 call was received reporting fire on the scaffolding of a vacant building. Now we know that it wasn't vacant. They just reported it as vacant. There was active demolition going on. So 15:37, 2 engine companies, 2 ladder companies, and a battalion chief were dispatched. A minute later, due to the quantity and quality of calls, the dispatcher upgraded the fire to a working fire response, which added 2 more engine companies, a squad company, and a rescue company. So the full first alarm response, which would have been, and this is going to be hard to keep track of because of all the different companies and firefighters involved, but it would have been Engine 10, Engine 4, Engine 6, Engine 7, Ladder 10, Ladder 15, Battalion 1, Squad 18, and Rescue 1. Ladder 1 was also added as a working fire, which is a fast truck, which is FDNY term for RIT or RIC. Fast, I kind of like it. FAST stands for Firefighter Assistant Search Team, which is what a RIC or RIT team do, as opposed to what does rapid intervention mean. But that's a different soapbox for a different time, I guess.
They were going to call it rescue as well, but then it would have been fart.
Yeah.
So they changed it to search instead of rescue.
Yeah. Well, they used to assign an engine and call it the Firefighter Assist Team. So they called it the FAT engine. So I guess they didn't want to call it FAT. They didn't want to call it fart. So they figured out to call it fast. So in addition to those units, Battalion 2 and Division 1, which is the next up level chief in the New York Fire Department, were added. So 15:39, we mentioned 10 houses literally next door to this building. So they arrived within a couple minutes of being dispatched. They positioned near the hydrant on the Charlie Delta corner of the structure. At this time, the fire was observed through the scaffolding midway up the structure on the Charlie side. As Engine 10 crew attempted to connect their hose line to the FDC, Fire Department connection, nearest the CD corner, they were told by a civilian worker that it would not supply the standpipe. The worker said that another standpipe 100 feet east of their location would supply the system. The Engine 10 officer ordered one of his firefighters to connect to the operational FDC, and then he and the rest of his crew followed the worker to the construction elevator on the exterior of the Alpha side. The civilian worker reported that the fire was on the 17th floor, and the worker operated the construction elevator, taking the crew to the 15th floor. So they're doing it right so far, 2 floors below the fire. Not like some of our podcasts where they went right to the fire floor and went, oh shit, there's fire here. 1541, Ladder 10 arrived on the scene, saw fire at the Charlie side, and transmitted a second alarm. The scaffolding surrounding the building was on fire, and the fire was on multiple floors. The Engine 10 and Ladder 10 officers conferred on whether the building standpipe was working. Dispatch assigned 5 more engine companies, another squad unit, 2 more ladders, 3 more battalion chiefs, and a bunch of miscellaneous support units on the second alarm. So lots of response here with lots of manpower. When Engine 10 crew arrived on the 15th floor, the conditions were clear, and the worker informed the crew of the basic layout of the floor, noting the location of the stairwells.
Is it somebody, it was Cologne or somewhere in France. They had a similar fire at a significant church building about 4 months ago. We talked about it in one of the episodes. I don't remember where.
Sweden or Denmark.
No, they had that one wasn't good. The fire, it burned down. They didn't save it either.
But the one that they saved, it was like one of those spiral buildings.
And it was all wrapped, but they had really good plans.
Yeah.
They had really good plans for construction fire safety, and they were able to get up there, and they had hoses pre-positioned, and they had everything, and they were able to save it, which was like amazing. And that's what you're supposed to do. NFPA 241 is the standard, have pre-plans and everything ready. Whereas the one in Gothenburg, I think Denmark or Sweden, they burned down the old courthouse or whatever it was under demolition as well. Same as Notre Dame. Again, it was under construction.
Construction. Yep. There was a side note here. I guess our friend Zach should have been reading this, but he will never listen to this now anyway. So since the building was undergoing asbestos remediation, white plastic sheet was used to partition the floor area into separate zones, each with a separate high-efficiency particulate air filtering unit. All these partitions created maze-like conditions for the firefighters. That's going to be pretty important further into the incident here.
The Engine 10 officer tried to locate the standpipe riser on the B stairwell, but there was no outlet on either the 14th or 15th floor. When he attempted to check on the 16th floor, he found the stairwell was blocked over with a wooden hatch. The Engine 10 crew then went to the A stairwell and found an outlet on the standpipe riser. They connected their 2.5-inch hose line to the outlet and waited for the system to be charged. Engine 7 has arrived. They are assisting Engine 10 with flaking out hose and had 5 lengths connected, waiting for a water supply. So at 1547, the Engine 10 crew could not advance up the building stairwell because it was boarded over. Ladder 10 officer made a radio transmission for all firefighters to use their SCBAs since the building was undergoing asbestos abatement. Some of the further away companies, but these are still first alarm companies, Engine 6, Rescue 1, Squad 18, and Battalion 1 arrived on scene. Battalion 1 requested to upgrade the fire from a usual working fire to a high-rise building fire, which in New York adds a whole bunch of other units. At 1549, Battalion 1 ordered the Ladder 8 crew to the 15th floor with some saws for Engine 10, probably to cut through all the plywood that they were encountering. The Engine 10 officer informed Battalion 1 that access to the fire floor was restricted since the stairwell was boarded over. Engine 24, which was one of the engine companies dispatched on the second alarm, which had victims 1 and 2 on it, and Battalion 2, which was in Engine 24's firehouse, arrived on the scene. Dispatch assigned another engine, another ladder, and another rescue company, and another battalion chief. So they're just sending more and more and more resources.
Saws for a high-rise. It's not something you would normally think of. Maybe one But I mean, if you're cutting wood everywhere, you need a bunch of saws, like chainsaws, to open everything up, and you're going to carry some basic tools, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't think of that for a high rise.
It's also interesting that they boarded up the stairwells, like so the building, the workers could only get in there with the outside elevator and the scaffolding.
Sounds like
Like
it.
if they boarded all the stairwells, which is crazy to start with, but from a fire perspective, but
And FPA 241.
that's amazing.
The Ladder 15 crew was working on the hatch in the B stairwell, and once they opened it, they stretched the line to the 16th floor. The Ladder 1 crew, which is designated as rapid intervention, set up in the interior lobby area on the 15th floor. Since Ladder 1 had a saw that they brought to be part of rapid intervention, the Ladder 10 officer requested that it be used to open the A stairwell hatch. A Ladder 1 firefighter ran the saw for approximately 15 minutes, with other firefighters assisting to open the hatch. The RIT or Ladder 1 officer was going to deploy a search rope from the stairwell to the A-side exterior construction elevator, but decided not to in case it was needed on the 16th floor. The RIT team surveyed the 15th floor and found that the window that Engine 10 firefighter had broken earlier. They went on the scaffolding towards the C side and were looking into the building through the windows and only saw a light haze. They returned to the interior lobby on the 15th floor and began to stage for RIT duties. At 16:04, so we're getting to be about half an hour into this incident. 16:04, the Ladder 10 officer reported to command that the 15th floor A stairwell hatch was open and there was heavy smoke conditions on the 16th floor. By this time, smoke was beginning to fill the stairwell and a search rope was deployed. The Ladder 10 officer used his thermal imaging camera, or TIC, to locate the fire, but the camera showed little heat on the 16th floor. Rescue 1's crew used a search rope and began searching the 16th floor. The Rescue 1 officer and the Ladder 10 crew continued up to the 17th floor to locate the fire. In the 15th floor B stairwell, Ladder 15 and Squad 18 gained access through the hatch and began searching on the 16th floor using a search rope. So far, they're doing a lot of good things, using search ropes, and I think they're doing things.
Did they have like victims missing? Did they have an all clear or from the construction
I'm not
company?
sure if they got told that there was or wasn't.
But they're looking for the fire, obviously.
Yeah, because there should be evacuation procedures, muster point, all this stuff, and that wasn't really mentioned, right?
Like but unless they had an all clear, then you're going to suspect there's people in there somewhere, maybe, and they're trying to find the fire, obviously.
Yeah, even if you get an all clear, you're still not going to do your searches. I mean, we would, Doug and I.
I mean, what else are you going to do for a fire in the 15th floor? You're not. I mean, your ladders aren't reaching. You still got to go put the fire out.
Well, you need a Toronto there with a big Bronto.
No, it would have took them a long time to get there. They didn't even buy it by then yet.
New York was going to buy one just like it, but I don't know that if it fell through or something. I remember Bronto telling me that they were working with New York to buy was it 230 feet or something?
I heard that they set it up, didn't like how big the footprint was for setting up, and that chief that wanted it retired, and the other one said, take your idea with you.
That was the end of that.
Yeah. Anyways, back to Deutsche Bank.
Chiefs come and go.
The Rescue 1 officer led the way to the 17th floor. The Ladder 10 officer, remember the 17th floor is where they were told the fire was. The Ladder 10 officer dropped his TIC in the stairwell and could not locate it in the heavy smoke. 1607 Rescue 1 officer reported to command they could not see any flame, but they could hear fire crackling on the 17th floor A stairwell landing. Battalion Chief 2 acknowledged and said to keep back since there was no water supply. At 1607 hours, command assigned units to check on the standpipe. Command ordered Ladder 15 to go below the 15th floor and check the standpipe riser.
Hey, Dirk, don't you complain about that stupid lanyard thing on the TIC? You made a comment a couple of weeks ago about maybe that's why they have it, so you don't lose it in the heavy smoke. I
didn't I complained about the retractable. I'm not saying you shouldn't hang it around your body, but it shouldn't be a retractable. That's all I said.
Oh, it shouldn't be retractable.
It shouldn't be
Oh,
retractable. Could be
I
a
never thought
lanyard.
of
It
that.
could be a webbing, whatever. Kind of like
Oh, okay. All right.
yeah.
Cool. I tried to get a dig in, but it didn't work.
So at 1611 hours, Battalion Chief 2 ordered Rescue 1 to the 14th floor since there was now fire on the 15th floor and no water. So now the fire is dropping down. Rescue 1 and Ladder 10 both began to back down the A stairwell. This was a very slow process since the hatches were small and only one firefighter could pass at a time. And remember, there's 6 guys on these crews that are up there, each crew. Firefighters on the 16th floor were also backing down the B stairwell. The fire conditions on the 15th floor were rapidly changing from a light haze to heavy black smoke overhead. Engine companies 4, 6, and 24, with the victims, operating on the 15th floor, descended to the 14th floor and discussed stretching an exterior hose line. Ladder 1 gathered up their RIT gear and headed to the A-side external construction elevator. Engine 7 and 10 disconnected their hose line from the A stairwell standpipe on the 15th floor and headed toward the B stairwell, intending to hook up on the 14th floor. At this time, firefighters began donning their SCBA face pieces and operating on air. At 1613 hours, visibility on the 15th floor dropped to 0 as engine 7 and 10 were headed to the B stairwell. The firefighters became disoriented when they tried to traverse a large debris pile and were stopped by a plywood wall. An engine 10 firefighter transmitted a mayday at 1614 hours. So that's one mayday. Let's try to keep track of how many maydays there is here. That's one.
Just one thing I was reading through, and I was listening to some reports on this. When that smoke banked down, firefighters were reporting it was like a black curtain fell on top of them. Like it went from decent visibility to absolute zero visibility, like in a heartbeat.
Probably once it's full, right? It's a big space, and once it's full, it's just down. Yep.
Battalion Chief 2, operating on the 15th floor near the A-side construction elevators, acknowledged the mayday and ordered Squad 1, 18, and Rescue 1 to search for the lost firefighters. Engine 10 officer decided to return to the A stairwell, but he felt heat in front of him and behind him, so he transmitted a mayday at 1615 hours. So
Number
2 minutes apart, you're at mayday number 2 now. The engine officer finally made his way to the A stairwell and descended to the 14th floor at 1624 hours. On the 14th floor, he again became disoriented when he encountered a turnstile and radioed an update of his position. So he got out, but the mayday still wasn't taken care of because he was trapped again. 1617 hours, another Engine 10 firefighter became separated and transmitted a mayday from the internal elevator area near the
Number
debris
3.
pile on the 15th floor. Yeah, we're at 3 maydays now. 3 other Engine 10 firefighters made it to the outside of the plywood wall near the A side construction elevator. They started to bang on the wall to alert the firefighters of their location. At 1612, these times are jumping around a bit, but we'll try to. At 1612, the Squad 18 officer asked command about dropping a line down from the A side of the 15th floor to pull a hose line up the side of the building. He was told by Division 1 to stand by because the standpipe should soon be operational. As soon as he heard the mayday, he and his crew began searching the 15th floor and he found 3 Engine 10 firefighters banging on the wall. They directed the firefighters back to the construction elevator and continued searching. By the time they reached the end of the plywood, they found the other lost firefighters.
So 150-foot rope, would they have taken that up with them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know they take some rope. I don't know how long it is, but that's pretty long rope.
That's
You
pretty
can lower
long.
it. It would be easier to haul it up and then lower it down. Yeah. So the exact identity of some of the lost firefighters was unknown to Squad 18 due to the smoke conditions. The plywood wall had been breached at the end, and Squad 18 exited back to the construction elevator area.
When Squad 1 first heard the Mayday transmission, they were near the A-side construction elevator on the 15th floor. The crew deployed a search rope, and half of the crew entered the 15th floor. Note, this is the same location that Squad 18 had entered to search. The Squad 1 crew saw 4 or 5 firefighters exit along the search rope. It was beginning to get very hot, and a Squad 1 firefighter yelled to the crew searching on the 15th floor to come back. The search crew exited through the breach in the plywood wall. So firefighters are descending to the 14th floor. The Engine 7 officer and an Engine 7 firefighter made it down the B stairwell to the 14th floor and made their way out of the plywood wall on the A side. The Ladder 10 officer and 2 firefighters made it down the A stairwell, and once on the 14th floor encountered the turnstile. Since they could not make it past the turnstile, they returned to the A stairwell. They saw daylight coming from the Charlie side, or C side, and decided to make it to the C side windows. They left the stairwell as a team, following along an interior wall. About halfway, they found 2 other firefighters, one from TAC 1, which is a support unit, and one from Squad 1, trying to find their way off of the 15th floor. The TAC 1 firefighter told the Ladder 10 officer that there was heavy fire in the decon area behind the plywood wall. Together, they advanced toward the C side. At 16:19 hours, the Ladder 10 officer radioed an urgent message. Ladder 10 to battalion. Be advised that we had to drop down to 14. We're blowing out the windows on the, I'm not sure what side I'm on, but we're blowing out the windows. We're out of air, south side of the building. 16:39 hours, the Ladder 10 officer transmitted another urgent message that the fire blew through the plywood wall in the decon shower area, and they were exiting onto the scaffolding on the C side. Both transmissions were acknowledged by command. So those weren't Mayday transmissions, but they were one level down as urgent messages. Rescue 1, positioned on the 15th floor, went down the A stairwell to the 14th floor. The Rescue 1 officer exited the stairwell and encountered the turnstile and returned to the stairwell. One of his firefighters had a small saw and was trying to open the hatch leading to the 13th floor. The saw would not run due to the heavy smoke conditions. Another Rescue 1 firefighter realized that there was an opening in the wall. The wall was plastic sheeting on the D side from the stairwell. They saw light coming from the A side, and the entire Rescue 1 crew exited the stairwell and made their way to the Q decking near the construction elevator. At 16:09 hours, so backtrack a little bit, Battalion 4 reported to command that according to the building engineer, the standpipe was operational in the B stairwell.
So now we'll take a minute to talk about this dry standpipe. Realizing that the standpipe was dry, Engine 4, 6, and 24 crews on the 14th floor Q decking area near the construction elevators began an exterior hose line stretch, so around the outside of the building on the Q decking and scaffolding. They were connecting their 2.5-inch hose lines together when they heard the first mayday from Engine 10. They heard banging on the plywood wall and began breaching the wall to assist firefighters on the other side. After opening the plywood wall and assisting Engine 10 firefighters, they continued with the exterior line stretch. The Engine 4 officer was trying to determine the best location to drop the exterior line down. He saw a clear path to the ground beside a construction elevator. A construction worker operating the elevator told the firefighters that the top of the elevator had a caged platform, which was sometimes used to transport supplies and equipment. The Engine 4 officer decided to put a firefighter on top of the elevator and help flake down a hose line out as the elevator descended to the ground. An Engine 4 firefighter rode the elevator to the ground as firefighters on the 14th floor fed him hose. So they didn't use a rope, they just had enough hose to flake it down. Once the external line was hooked up to a satellite water manifold, only 2 lengths of hose remained on the 14th floor, which they stretched back to the stairwells. This is the building's the size of a city block. You got 2 lengths of hose. At some point, Engine 24 firefighter attached their nozzle to the end of the hose line and said it was Engine 24's line. Engine 3, the high-rise unit officer, and 2 firefighters brought extra SCBA cylinders to the 14th floor. Battalion Chief 41 told the Engine 3 officer to report back the status of the hose line stretch. He followed the hose line back to the stairwell, where Engine 24 crew with victims 1 and 2 told them they needed more hose. He returned to the elevator area and told Battalion 41 that Engine 24 was on the nozzle, but they needed more sections of hose line. Battalion 41 radioed command and other units to bring more hose to the 14th floor. After flaking out more hose line, the Engine 3 officer followed the hose line back to the B stairwell and saw that it was at the doorway leading up to the 15th floor. The line was charged at 16:44 hours.
That took a long time, eh? So how long did it take them to get water? Call
Well,
came in.
the call came in at like 15:36, so we're about an hour and 10 minutes, give or take, into the operation, and they finally got a charged hose line. Charged hose line.
Does anybody know why the stamp app wasn't functioning? Because the construction worker said this one is going to work, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that comes later.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Okay, Engine 24 operating the hose line. As the Engine 24 crew with victims 1 and 2 advanced the hose line from the 14th floor up the B stairwell to the 15th floor, Rescue 2 was finishing a search of the 15th floor. A Rescue 2 firefighter was stationed at the stairwell to monitor conditions while the rest of the crew used the search rope. At 16:44 hours, the Rescue 2 firefighter at the stairwell was ordered by the Rescue 2 officer to descend to the 14th floor. The stairwell had zero visibility as he started down, and he remembers bumping into at least one of Engine 24's firefighters. Victim number 1 was on the nozzle, and another Engine 24 firefighter was on the backup. Both were at the doorway of the 15th floor stairwell when the Engine 24 officer began to search for the fire. As soon as the officer began his search, his low air alarm activated. He returned to the stairwell and told the firefighter, possibly victim number 1, not sure, that he was low on air and was going down to the 14th floor. He reached the half landing between the 14th and 15th floor and became disoriented. He could not find his way out of the stairwell. 16:48 hours, he transmitted, "Mayday, mayday, mayday, Engine 24 to anybody." Command responded, "Unit with the mayday." The Engine 24 officer, "I'm lost. I'm trying to exit on the charge hose line. I'm running out of air." A few seconds later, an Engine 24 firefighter responded, "Look for the hose line. We're in the stairs." So a note that the Engine 24 firefighter thought his officer was still on the 15th floor searching for fire. He didn't realize his officer was actually in the stairwell behind him. The Engine 24 officer was able to find his way out of the stairwell onto the 14th floor and made his way back to the Q decking. So that's at least the 4th mayday on this fire for those keeping track. None of us have been to any fires with 1 mayday, never mind 1 fire with 4 maydays.
Plus the 2 emergency traffic ones.
Plus the urgent
messages.
messages.
Urgent message.
Yeah. Shortly after the Engine 24 officer left the 15th floor, victim number 1 and the backup firefighter decided to back the hose line down to the 14th floor. As they reached the 14th floor, they found victim number 2 standing up and gasping for air. At this point, the Engine 24 backup firefighters lost contact with victim number 1. Victim number 2 told them he was out of air. Victim number 2 was standing up even though the smoke conditions were extremely heavy. The Engine 24 backup firefighter removed his regulator to buddy breathe, but victim number 2 did not have his face piece on. He opened the purge valve to give him some air, but since his throat was hurting, he put his regulator back on. Since the Engine 24 firefighter was affected by smoke, he had some difficulties reattaching his regulator. The Engine 24 firefighter tried pulling victim number 2 to the ground, but he was resisting. Obviously, he's getting confused and overcome by the smoke, and it's affecting him. The Engine 24 firefighter lost his grip and fell forward through the door leading to the 14th floor. His hand landed on a garden-type hose that led to the construction elevator. He yelled back to victims 1 and 2 to follow him out. At 1650 hours, he transmitted a mayday. Mayday, mayday, engine 24 back up with a mayday. Command responded, unit with the mayday, go ahead. He responded, engine 24 back up. There were 2 members on the 14th floor out of air at the stairwell, going to make some noise by the entrance in the A stairwell. He made his way out to the Q decking area and told the other firefighters that 2 engine 24 firefighters were still inside. So eventually they find the victims. Firefighters stationed on the near the 14th floor Q decking area were completely exhausted. I mean, they had just been in smoke environment. They're working hard. They finally get themselves out. They're up high. So they're beat when they get out of there. The engine 24 firefighter that got out met up with his officer and told him what happened. The Rescue 1 officer and a Rescue 1 firefighter and the chief of the rescue battalion went through the breach in the plywood wall to search for the missing firefighters. After crawling about 15 feet, the Rescue 1 officer yelled back that he heard a pass alarm. The rescue battalion chief went back to the Q decking area and told the firefighters there to assist. 17:01 hours, victim 2 was located. He was found unconscious, not wearing his face piece. He was transported to the Q decking where CPR was started, and he was taken down the elevator. The Rescue 1 officer made sure that everyone was out before returning to the Q decking area. After returning, he was told by the Engine 3 officer that another firefighter was still missing. At 17:07 hours, they heard another pass alarm. They both followed a search rope back and began searching. Their Engine 3 officer found victim number 1 unconscious without his facepiece on, in the core area between the north and south turnstiles. He was on the edge of the platform that covered the original building elevator shafts on the east side of the core area. He was brought out to the Q decking area where firefighters began CPR, and he was taken down the elevator. Firefighters on the ground continued administering CPR and trying to stabilize the victims. They were rushed to waiting ambulances, which I read in a book about this, that the ambulances were far away from the building, like on the other side of the highway. There was a lot of confusion about where, so they had to run with these guys a long ways to get to the ambulances. The victims were transported to a Metropolitan Trauma Center where they succumbed to their injuries. Victim number 1 was pronounced dead at 18:10 hours, and victim number 2 pronounced dead at 18:09 hours.
That rescue work is amazing. Like, when you imagine you're climbing up all those stairs, up and down, high heat, zero visibility, you're searching. Like, these guys worked their asses off for an hour, and then they had to perform a rescue.
Crawling through hatches, cutting plywood, searching. I mean,
unbelievable.
Not knowing where you were. And they went up and down like 14, 15, 16 and back down and back up again.
And searching and forcing and
no refuge.
Yeah, unbelievable.
A little bit on the fire behavior and spread. According to the fire marshal, the origin and cause of the fire was from a burning cigarette discarded by a construction employee in the decontamination shower on the 17th floor. Significant fact, that's suspicious for Notre Dame as well. They don't know if it was a cigarette or a tool spark. The significant factors related to the fire's uncontrolled spread. The fire began on the 17th floor, the Charlie side in the decontamination shower area. The window and plywood coverings on the C side were self-venting 15 minutes after arrival, because that's how they got the alarms. The fires, you can see the building's burning scaffolding. Ventilation of 14th and 15th floors, B and C sides, occurred early in operation. Excessive reflex time, water supply was not established for over an hour into operations. The external fire extended laterally from the 17th floor downward. The smoke conditions changed dramatically when the fire on the 15th floor escalated. Firefighters described unusual smoke conditions as Doug was saying, a wall of smoke descending on them. Smoke conditions were dark black and fuel rich. Numerous compartmentalized zones were under negative pressure for asbestos abatement. The plastic sheeting, construction debris, and exposed lumber in partitions provided ample additional fuel.
Got some contributing factors here. Occupational injuries and fatalities are often the result of one or more contributing factors or key events in the larger sequence of events that ultimately resulted in the injury or fatality. NIOSH investigators identified the following items as key contributing factors in this incident that ultimately led to the fatalities: delayed notification of the fire by building construction personnel, standpipe and sprinkler system inoperable, delay in establishing water supply, inaccurate information about standpipes, unique building conditions with both asbestos abatement and deconstruction occurring simultaneously, extreme fire behavior, uncontrolled fire rapidly progressing and extending below the fire floor, blocked stairwells preventing the firefighter access and egress, maze-like interior conditions from partition and construction debris, heavy smoke conditions causing numerous firefighters to become lost or disoriented, failure of firefighters to always don SCBA inside structure and replenish air cylinders, communications overwhelmed with numerous mayday and urgent radio transmissions, and lack of crew integrity.
Yeah, I mean, this construction delayed alarm's a big thing. I get on my soapbox about that because there are companies out there that sell now. I don't know about an '07, but today they sell cell phone based fire alarm stations that you pre-populate around the building, and they have detectors on them, they have pull stations, they have comms, and they have an annunciator to alert everybody that, hey, there's a fire, and notify the fire department. But the construction's fire safety, often that delayed alarm, really, like, this thing's really rocking before you get there, and then you got to climb up 17 floors and find water. The cause of death, according to the medical examiner, for victim 1 was smoke inhalation with a carbon oxohemoglobin level of 20% saturation at time of autopsy. Victim 1 had marked soot in the oral cavity, larynx, and bronchi with pulmonary edema, indicating a burned airway. Victim 1 also had blunt trauma to the head with facial abrasions believed to be caused potentially by the rescue efforts, because they had to get them through those little holes and stuff, right? That is not easy. I know we've done a lot of RIT exercises or fast exercises, and it's not easy. Cause of death for victim 2 was smoke inhalation, a carbon oxyhemoglobin level of 27% saturation at the time of autopsy. A slight amount of soot was found in the trachea and bronchi.
Just a couple more notes about the fire and the injuries before we get to the recommendations and some just general talk. But by the time the fire was contained, there was 115 firefighters that suffered injuries. 46 were serious enough to require medical leave. The majority of the injuries were respiratory complications from smoke inhalation and musculoskeletal injuries.
Wow.
We basically covered the response of like the first 2 alarms of this fire. It ended up being a 7-alarm fire, burned into the evening before it was extinguished. There was an estimation of 45 engine companies, 30 ladder companies, 3 heavy rescue companies, which New York, the whole city only has 5, 19 battalion chiefs, 4 deputy chiefs, and numerous staff chiefs were there.
That's
so this
crazy.
was a very major event.
Yeah.
For even for New York City, this was a very major event.
When I was reading this episode, I was thinking of that One Meridian Plaza fire in Philadelphia back in. I'm looking for the episode here now. I can't remember what year it was, but and they did the same thing. It was 1991, and I remember that they had like hundreds of firefighters, and they actually strung 3 large diameter hose lines up the stairways on the inside. They still had a building. It was dark, no power, but can you imagine stringing large diameter hose up 22 floors? The labor involved in that is incredible. So I was thinking of that. Of course, it's a high-rise fire, and you guys have done high-rise fires, and you've gone to conferences and learned all about them. So it's crazy.
Yeah, reflex time is important. If you don't drill on it either, and I think New York City is probably one of the few departments in the world that do this on a regular basis,
Hmm.
and they're still running into problems. I mean, this time it was definitely more the building
Yeah,
than procedures or anything
right.
else.
Yeah, they like
Sure,
said Doug said they did everything right pretty well.
yeah, pretty well. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and Doug said like we just talked about till the victims were removed. They haven't even flown a gallon of water onto the fire,
right.
right?
Yep.
So yeah, crazy.
And just think of the total confusion. Like we mentioned, 5 maydays, firefighters out of air that aren't calling maydays. Other guys are exhausted, and you have 40 like a whole bunch of resources that you have to worry about in and out and who's where. And just like for most of us and our listeners, this just would be like a mind-blowing event.
Yeah,
46 serious injuries requiring hospitalization.
yeah. 150 firefighters injured. That like just the medical sector. Like imagine like how many EMTs, ambulance do you have to have on standby to deal with
And
that
a
amount?
and a widespread construction site that
Yeah,
it's a block large,
yeah.
plus all the area around. Like you said, Doug, you had to transport the ambulances. Didn't get close because they might have been on the wrong side, or
I,
or
I'm
couldn't
pretty
get in, or
sure.
whatever.
I'm pretty sure the trauma from 9/11 was still there. Like you have a high-rise building on fire on multiple floors, and like World Trade Center building number 7 that was burning, and it
Yeah,
came down. Right,
yeah,
so I think that was probably the main reason for staging everything so far away,
right, right.
because
Makes sense.
of the experiences they had. Right.
Of course, this thing's going to come down. Yep. Well, because we didn't mention it in the script here, but they actually did stabilization work on the building to stabilize it during the deconstruction because they had this big gash in there, and so they'd welded a bunch of steel and stuff like that to keep it from collapsing. We didn't want to bore you with the excessive details, but it was a huge fear for the engineers, the company, and of course the firefighters when they arrived. Who's next?
All right, we'll get into some recommendations here. Recommendation number 1. This is from the NIOSH report, not from the Doug and Paul Dirk show. The NIOSH report. Fire departments should review and follow existing standard operating procedures on high-rise firefighting to ensure that firefighters are not operating in hazardous areas without the protection of a charged hose line. In this incident, there was a major delay in establishing water supply, and firefighters were operating within the structure without charged hose lines. Fire departments should ensure that a hose line is in position prior to entering hazardous or potentially hazardous areas. At this point, the hose line can be charged and entry made. If the hose line doesn't charge or flow is restricted, firefighters will still have time and space to escape. In this incident, water supply was not established for a full hour into the incident, and at the time of the fatal event, the victim's hose line had just been charged. So, like Dirk asked why the standpipes didn't work. From what I understand, the workers had modified them to run some of the lines for their tools and stuff within the standpipe. They cut out the bottom and ran their hoses or their electrical, whatever,
Air hoses, electrical.
air
Yep.
hoses in the standpipe, which is, I would assume, is against regulations.
Yeah, you have to have a standpipe in the building,
So
regardless of if it's occupied. The standpipe needs to be charged and
obviously
operational.
they didn't know that was happening because the building people told the fire department this standpipe works, and it didn't work. So this recommendation, I mean, I always feel like I have a little asterisk in my head beside lots of them, but the crews that were up there operating with their SOPs, and I mean, New York's probably got more high rises, especially here in Manhattan, than like anybody we know of. They know how to fight high rise fires. They're doing it the way they always do it. I mean, that's not the best way to say it, but the way they've done it, that everything worked a lot, and they were told and expected the standpipe to work. So they were
Yep.
operating with the assumption that water's going to be here right away. Let's
Yep.
go find the fire. When they get water, we'll put the fire out. No big deal, right? That's the issue.
That's the difference. You're not going to sit there do nothing waiting for
Yeah.
water.
No, you're gonna
There wasn't zero visibility in high heat when they got there. So
no.
they've done all the truck work that you could do, like forcible entry, searching, like all this stuff was done beforehand, so that you're not falling behind. By the time you get water, you've already done that, and then you can focus on the water.
The biggest contributing factor to this whole event is that they didn't know what they were getting themselves into on a lot of different levels.
Yep.
But we'll cover that as we talk here.
Okay, so recommendation number 2: fire departments should be prepared to use alternative water supplies when the building standpipe system is compromised or inoperable. For discussion, establishing adequate water supply on the fire ground is an integral part of fire suppression, regardless of the choice of fire attack method or the type of fire stream used. Successful fire suppression depends upon discharging a sufficient quantity of water to remove the heat being generated and ensuring that the water stream reaches the fire rather than being turned into steam or being carried away by the convective current. In preparation for potential issues, fire departments should develop and enforce standard operating procedures to establish an alternate water supply when the high-rise building standpipe system is inoperable. In this incident, firefighters ran an external hose line up the side of the structure after struggling with the inoperable standpipe system. So, as an example, as Paul
I
said,
just
one
added
Meridian Plaza, exactly. Okay, 3 LDH lines up to 20-foot wall. You don't even need that. Like 2.5-inch line, absolutely sufficient. It's called a horizontal standpipe. People train on it. I'm sure FDNY knows it, knows how to do that. The problem is also people tell you, "Oh, the FTC is working 100 feet down the road." Right now, you focus on that one, and that will
Yep.
take time. So again, everything takes time. By the time you figure, "Holy shit, the system is really not working," now you got to drop the lines down, and that will take time. And
Well,
yeah,
and
it's an hour
I
into the
mean,
incident, and you got 2 fatalities, right?
this recommendation says they should be prepared to use alternative water supply. They were. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Crews up there were talking about it amongst themselves.
Yep.
More than one crew radioed down to the command post saying, "Hey, how about we do this?" And the command post has the fire engineer or the building engineer guy there saying, "No, they work. They work.
It's going to work. Yep.
Just give me a second." So it's tough.
Recommendation number 3. Fire departments should develop and enforce risk management plans, policies, and standard operating guidelines for risk management during complex high-rise operations. According to NFPA 1500, this is the discussion, an acceptable level of risk is directly related to the potential to save lives or property. So where there's no potential to save lives, the risk to the fire department members should be evaluated in proportion to the ability to save property of value. When there's no ability to save lives or property, then there's no justification to expose the firefighters to any avoidable risk, and defensive fire suppression operations are the appropriate strategy. Retired FDNY Fire Chief Vincent Dunn states the following: when no other person's life is in danger, the life of the firefighter is the higher priority than fire containment. Chief Dunn also states, the protection of life is the highest goal of the fire service. When life is clearly threatened, there is no risk too great. At most fires, however, lives are not clearly in danger. At most fires, then the priority of firefighting is the protection of the firefighters' lives. And I think, it was reasonable to think that they could control this fire if they had what they expected for water. At least they could see if it would be controllable. It's
It's still
when
a
they
tough
didn't
fire.
get water and they're waiting for it at that point. And I guess maybe command could have said, you know what? Let's get out of here. This is a waste because we got no water. We're running the hose lines 150 feet up the side of the building. But you're committed. You got 20, 30, 40 guys up there. So
And
you can't get them all
what
down
is
the
it
elevator
like when you say to a firefighter, a defensive operations? What does that mean?
on a high rise.
It means spraying water from the outside, right? Tower ladders
Right.
go up and buildings come down. Well, what about when you're on the 17th floor of a high rise? How are you spraying
Yep.
water from outside there?
Meridian
So
One Plaza from the building across the street.
The building across the street just got knocked down by 2 planes.
I know.
It would be from the safety of a stairwell, for example. Like you go floor below, whatever, and then you fight it from the safety of the stairwell. I think Winston Dunn wrote books on that, right?
Which is what they tried to do, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly what they
until
tried
your
to do.
you don't have
stairwell's
water.
covered with
You don't have
plywood.
water. Yeah,
Can't do
exactly.
it. Yep. Defensive operations don't work if there's no water.
Okay. Recommendation number 4: fire departments should ensure that crew integrity is maintained during high-rise fire suppression operations. Okay, so firefighters should always work and remain in teams whenever they are operating in hazardous environments. Team continuity, that's a tough one for me. Team continuity means team members know who is on their team and who is the team leader. Team members stay within visual contact at all times. If visibility is low, teams must stay within touch or voice distance to each other. You know, we've been there. Like everybody grab their heels and then we do a search and stay together. Okay, team members communicate needs and observations to the other team members. The team member rotate together for team rehabilitation, staging, and accountability. For example, watching out for each other, practicing a strong buddy system. Following these basic rules helps prevent serious injuries or even death by providing personnel with the added safety net to fellow team members. Teams that enter a hazardous environment together should leave together to ensure the team's continuity is maintained. Fire departments should also consider adding implementation of a crew accountability system during complex high-rise incidents. In this incident, there were numerous instances where firefighters became disoriented while working independently. Well, we could talk about that now or later, but first of all, these guys know each other. They've been working together for years. That's why they're companies. They know exactly which engine worked with what truck and what rescue company was there. Um, and in zero visibility, it is tough to stick together. You get turned around so quickly, and this whole in touch and voice, it's just not working most of the time. It's yeah.
I think this is an example of where FDNY is different from a lot of what we know and most people know, is that like we arrive with whatever our company is, and our company is assigned a task, and our company goes to do that task. Where I think in New York, you're predetermined to do what you're going to do based on your riding position and the order you arrive in. So, like, the whole truck company doesn't stay together. The inside team does one thing, the outside team does another. But you have your own teams formed because the 3 truck companies that respond and the rescue all have a roof guy that all go to the roof, and they become the roof team, really, even though they arrived on different units. So I think it's a little different. I don't know. I don't know if their way is better or worse or not, but for the most part, their way works a lot. They're very aggressive, and yeah,
and they're sending a lot of chiefs and aides, and they are keeping track of the
yeah,
crews inside, and they are mixing companies all the time. As I said, the rescue companies, Navy SEALs. Hey, engine company got trouble advancing the hose line. Guess what? They're going to join them. They're going to help them pushing. So there you go. As you said, that they always combine crews. Like first arriving engine, second arriving engine, take the first hose line. So now you got what 12 guys on the first hose line, right? So they're always putting these people together, but they know about it. They do this all the time. So for me, this recommendation is kind of. I don't think it would have mattered if they would have
well,
stuck
part of the
together or
problem
not.
is like the whole team together got lost and ran out of air and all that. Like,
Yeah.
so, and
And,
yeah,
and that might be the only thing I would say, like air accountability, keeping better track of your air, and when you're low on air, not out of air, but low on air, that's when you gotta say, hey guys, everybody out with me, and that's usually procedures that we do. Um, but again, we're not FDNY, so I'm not sure what their procedures are.
recommendation number 5, pretty small one. Fire departments should train firefighters on actions to take if they become trapped or disoriented inside a burning high-rise structure. I would bet that most fire departments that have a high-rise in their area do this. And
Yeah,
I would bet
sure.
my mortgage that the FDNY does.
Yeah, agree. Number 6, fire departments should ensure that firefighters diligently wear their self-contained breathing apparatus when working in environments that are immediately dangerous to life and health. During this incident, there were multiple incidences of firefighters inside the burning structure, which was contaminated with asbestos, operated without donning their face piece. I'm sure they're trying to save air and see where the heck they're going.
Well, yeah,
and
you
all
got to
that
get
kind of
to the
stuff.
14th, 15th floor. If
Right.
you're walking up there on air, you're going to get there be out of air.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
but like, and deteriorations changed very quickly
Yes.
to
they did.
like, yeah.
And remember, they don't have 60 or 90-minute bottles, right? The cylinders. I think they got
Yeah,
30
I
they
don't-
use small ones.
I
Yeah.
don't
They
know
got
what
the
they
small
had
ones. So you wait till you
7.
have to, basically,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah,
then
they're
you
saving
only
air.
have we use 60-minute cylinders, Doug. Is that correct? 60 minutes.
No?
Yeah. So if I work really, really hard, I'm done in 20 minutes. Like I'm out
Yeah.
of air in 20 minutes. If I have a 30-minute cylinder on my back, I'm done in 5 minutes, guaranteed. Yeah, right? Make it 10 minutes. But they were in that environment for over an hour, and they're probably taking on and off and on and off and on and off.
And you're losing a bit every time you take it off, and you're
Yeah.
waiting for someone to haul cylinders up with a construction elevator.
Again, the flex time to get your staging done, all this stuff, and
Which
then you have to actually go there, right?
In New York, they have procedures for getting cylinders up there. That's
Right.
what
I'm sure
the
they
unit's
ever
for
like
that, right?
yeah.
So
Except for that they might have been parked far away, so then you're looking for a way to get them over there, a pickup or something to get them to the elevator.
well, they have a high rise unit that has these things on carts that they wheel up there, and they can.
But
But
a
I
high
don't
rise
think
is thinking
that
you're
helped.
parking
I
on
don't
the
think
street.
that mattered with any of this stuff.
No.
Okay.
Okay, recommendation number 7, fire departments should train firefighters in air management techniques to ensure they receive the maximum benefit from the self-contained breathing apparatus. Oh, that's all nice and dandy when you're out of air, you're out of air. And then, I mean...
Yeah, there's nothing you can do here.
We've been teaching, I mean, there is alternatives, but they're not fun.
No.
Like disconnect your air hose and stuck it in your turnout gear, right? So you breathe through that little tube without pressure. You still get some air, but you're not exposing yourself to the IDLH.
A bit of filtering, yeah.
A bit of filtering, right? So that's something we teach nowadays, but we also teach you shouldn't even be in that situation because you should have been out, get a new bottle. Yeah. But that's what happens. That's when incidents happens. Like everything is exhausted. Everything went wrong, and here we go.
Well, they were probably so excited to get water. They probably never looked at their bottle, and then they start going up the stairs, and then the captain first hears an alarm and goes, "Uh-oh, okay, I'm going to go down." Then the other guy's like, "Uh-oh," and then too late.
Yeah, and then you want to get out, right? And everybody's like, no, you got to stay calm, and then you're going to lay down and curl up in a corner, and then you do your box breathing and all this. That sounds all nice and dandy when your ass is not on fire. I can always say that when you are in a stress situation and it's hot, you want to get out, and you do everything to save your ass.
These guys were losing, right? The fire was getting worse, dropping down, which is not very common that fire drops down.
Right.
But because of those big HEPA filters with big fans blowing air around, it did here. And they finally got some ammo in their gun to fight back a little bit. So I can see why they were.
Hey, let's knock this down. Yep.
Yeah, let's go. It's time to go now. Let's get at it. Anyways, recommendation number 8. Paul will love this one. He'll bring up how Saskatoon or Regina or somebody homemade one.
That's right. These. Yeah, Regina
Fire
or Saskatoon had these.
Should use exit locators, both visual and audible, or safety ropes to guide lost or disoriented firefighters to the exit.
Didn't you say Germany had those? No?
During this incident, numerous firefighters inside the structure became disoriented as the fire conditions deteriorated. The use of a combination of high-intensity floodlights, flashing strobe lights, or other high-visibility beacons and audible alerts can be set up at entry portals of burning structures as an aid to assist firefighters in situations requiring emergency escape. Well, I mean, they talked about 3 or 4 different units that set up safety ropes, which like you almost never hear of. We all carry it on our truck and never use it. They were
I think
using it from the get-go
It
here.
was the fast team that had the safety rope.
They
I don't
had
know if
it,
they
but
had more.
it talked about Rescue 1 setting one up when they were searching, and I think one of the squads set one up when they were
Maybe,
searching.
yeah.
And my take on this, it sounds great in theory, but in an already stressful fire environment where the first thing that goes is your hearing, and now
Yeah.
you put something else that beeps, like, oh, does it beep like a pass alarm? Like, I don't like the audible stuff. And we all know flashing lights in 0 to like medium to 0 visibility makes things worse. Like, you just
Yeah, because everything
everybody
flashes.
everybody turns the lights off. If you
Yeah.
turn on your helmet light, you're
Yeah.
like the deer in the headlights, right? You can't
Yeah.
see
Well,
anything, right?
Yeah, you're going to
So
be in the fire and you're going to hear the fire. You're going to hear your radio. You're going to hear yourself breathing. You're going to hear your buddy breathing. You're going to hear your captain yelling at you. You're going to hear the radio doing blah, blah, blah. So let's just add one more sound that you're supposed to
that
listen
flashes and
for.
beeps, yeah.
It's like,
negative noise.
Don't forget the fire alarms going off. Not
it's
here.
not negative.
Not
Paul.
here.
It's not, like, it's
Not here,
it's-
but
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, like, this sounds really good, but I think in real life, I don't know how well it would work, because then on a fire that everything's going well, you're going to be like, turn that thing off. I can't hear the radio. I can't hear my captain. I can't, like, you know what I mean?
We should do a survey. How many fire departments and our listeners have an emergency exit locator, audible, visual, something? You used to sell them. We should do it. I'll do a survey. See if
I
anyone
can take a guess. I'd say 0.
And
maybe.
like to actually know where, when you're in the building with walls and actually know where the sound's coming from.
Exactly.
Like
Plywood
it
dividers
sounds
everywhere.
great. Oh, just put this at the window. Everybody will know where to go.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work that awesome, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
Not a big
probably
fan.
why. Which is probably why most departments I know of don't do this.
Don't do it. And Doug, how many fires do we walk in? House fires, the smoke detector is going off, and the first thing
Right.
you do, you take your Halligan and you take that thing off because you cannot
Yeah,
hear
it's extra noise for
anything,
nothing.
right? Yeah, exactly. We know it's burning. That's why we're there.
Anyways,
Recommendation
Next.
number 9. Fire departments should conduct pre-incident planning inspections of building within their jurisdiction to facilitate development of safe fireground strategies and tactics. In this incident, the fire department had not conducted any recent pre-planned inspections of the structure since it was undergoing the asbestos abatement. A pre-incident inspection of the building in this incident would have necessitated that firefighters conducting the inspection wear the appropriate PPE and be decontaminated following the inspection. Fire departments should ensure additional resources are available so pre-incident inspections in buildings undergoing deconstruction and or asbestos abatement are fully inspected. Additional resources would include personnel, service time, appropriate PPE, decontamination. And that's, of course, they didn't do.
well, I don't think the PPE and the decontamination is something that is really worried about this incident.
No,
But
pre-inspection. If you're going to go do a tour,
I know.
you'd have to get all geared up.
Sure, but I know that the lack of a pre-incident plan on this fire was pointed out as a problem.
Yep.
And they were supposed to inspect it like every 15 days, and this happened in August, and it hadn't been inspected since like March or something like that. And I know as part of the internal FDNY investigation, I think one of the captains that was supposed to be responsible for the pre-incident plans was, I don't know what the discipline action is, but he was charged or whatever.
Yeah.
I also heard many FDNY people being like, yes, that 15-day rule is there, but we never follow it. So
Yeah. Because you'd be doing inspections all day, pre-plans. Fire departments should encourage building owners and occupants to report emergency situations as soon as possible and provide accurate information to the fire department. In this incident, Fire Command received inaccurate information about the structure from construction personnel. As a result, firefighting operations were adversely affected. Construction personnel erroneously reported the standpipe system was operational, and command assumed that water supply would be established by the system. This resulted in a delay before water was supplied and suppression operations could begin. And yeah, we know it was a huge delay while the fire grew with all that plywood and plastic and disposable coveralls and all the
And
other
big
trash.
fans blowing on it.
And fans blowing on it. Yeah.
Recommendation number 11, fire department should consider additional firefighter training using a high-rise fire simulator. Give me your credit card and I'll order every simulator you want me to order. Following this incident, this fire department did construct a high-rise fire simulator at its fire academy and has trained all of the engine and ladder companies using the new simulator. It's 4,000 square feet, 4-story training. Reproduces the unique conditions firefighters would face while responding to high-rise building fires, such as rollover fire conditions and a dry standpipe system. Other metropolitan fire departments with high-rise structures should also consider using a high-rise fire simulator as a firefighter training tool to increase safety and proficiency during its high-rise fires.
Yeah,
I wonder
That's
if
a good recommendation.
I wonder if before they make them go fight a fire that's supposed to be in a high rise of their 4-story tower, do they go run 10 flights of stairs in gear before they get there and really simulate what a high rise fire would be like? Because all that affects it, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Good question.
If you're, there's a difference between the flex time and then the actual procedures on scene. So I think that might be something they would work on.
Although, I mean, it's good that they have like the layout of a high rise and a standpipe, and you can go through the motions.
Yeah.
But you still need to understand that this is a simulator. It's still not the real thing.
Building muscle memory and brain memory and connecting the dots, right?
And I'm going to one-upper here. I'm going to do one-upper. When I was in Barcelona, their new training tower, 9 stories high with 3 sub-levels.
Nice.
Also, standpipes, all the 9, everything, like all the bells and whistles. They got pressure reducing valves in there. They got everything to train on. So that was pretty cool. They cannot have live fire in there. That's the only thing they can't.
We'll give Dr. Rich Gassaway a plug. Recognition prime decision making, right? And if you've been there before, just like I'll give Blue Card a plug, just like Blue Card. If you've done the call before, you might do it better the 3rd or 4th or 5th time, especially under bad conditions.
Look, Dirk, 1 hour and 27 minutes before he mentioned Blue Card.
Recommendation number 12. Manufacturers, equipment designers, and researchers should conduct research into refining and developing new technology to track the movement of firefighters in high-rise structures. Firefighter fatalities are often the result of firefighters becoming lost or disoriented on the fire ground. The use of systems for locating lost or disoriented firefighters could be instrumental in reducing the number of firefighter deaths on the fire ground. The National Institute for Standards and Technology has been evaluating the feasibility of real-time firefighter tracking locator systems. Research into refining existing systems and developing new technologies should continue, and I think we still don't have that. So.
I don't think it's working. It's just not
They just struggle at making it 3D, right?
Yeah,
They can get your GPS.
You're on top of each other.
Yeah. They don't know how to get the third access in there.
Yeah.
And this fire was 2007. We're almost 20 years later. So even if the report was 2008 or 9, we're 15 years later.
MSA was working on it, but I don't know where they
still don't have
got to.
I can't remember where I saw this, guys, but they were talking about using, because most cities now provide free Wi-Fi in their downtown cores, right? And they're trying to use the free Wi-Fi within the cities to get this 3D picture.
Right.
And I think, Doug, we saw this for their mobile. It's not the instant command unit. What's it? The mobile
field comm unit.
Field comm unit. They showed how they track the crews, and they can at least see which floor they are on and who's on that crew. I think
because they log into a different Wi-Fi thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that actually worked, but they showed it on the laptop. I mean, they're still keeping track of the crews on their big accountability board, but everything was on this laptop. And then you can click on each company and then opens up a window. It's basically your tail staff. It's like,
Yeah,
Officer
and
so and so with 5 firefighters on the 4th floor, right?
that helps when you're telling them on the radio where you are.
Yeah.
But if you're lost, they can just go by what your last known location. I guess it's a good starting point, but
Yeah. And then, yeah,
it's
you're right. You're not accounting for the individual firefighter.
yeah.
Okay, recommendation number 13. Manufacturers, equipment designers, and researchers should continue to develop and refine durable, easy to use radio systems to enhance verbal and radio communications in conjunction with properly worn self contained breathing apparatus. During this incident, firefighters experienced intermittent radio communication problems, and some high priority transmissions were not heard by fire command. Effective radio communication is an important part of safe fireground operations. I mean, they
I think
identified
that's
this
better now.
in 9/11. They identified this in 9/11 that there's a
Yeah.
problem. And nowadays, you're still running into those problems, especially like big institutions like universities. You go third sub-level parkade, there is no radio communication. It's done, right?
Well, and
Um,
there's 115 firefighters, and I
yeah,
mean, it's a lot of people.
it's a lot of people. Yeah.
And
Well,
I know it's
some
an issue. The higher you get above ground, the more your radio, you're kind of in a bubble, right? And if you get outside that bubble, it struggles.
I know one of the cities here in Alberta, when they were implementing the provincial radio system, they were they were considering enacting a bylaw that all massive buildings like universities and colleges and hospitals would have to add repeaters inside the building on each floor for firefighters. I don't know if it ever happened, but
Good luck with that.
yeah,
Some cities try to introduce the Knox box
right.
for the F department
Lock
keys,
boxes. Yeah,
and try to take technology to release the keys. You use your
yeah,
whatever fingerprint, all this. It never worked, and
yeah.
we still respond to houses where there's not even a fire department key box. It's
Right.
like
Well, we
so,
just, I mean, as the fire department, you need to be prepared for all those nice things to not work anyways, right? Every big high-rise building needs a fire pump. Well, they're supposed to be maintained and everything, and sometimes they're not.
Yep.
So that,
yeah.
like, you have to be
That's right.
right.
Yeah. So one of the changes FDNY made to this is because the firefighters had their radios under the code.
Ah,
So even if they would have used the emergency button, they would have to take it out and then use it with the gloved hand. So what they did, they basically bought rappel mics, remote mics for all of the guys, and have it on the mic on the outside. So it's easier
right.
to get that emergency communication out. I still don't know. Like, I know how it works when one firefighter calls a mayday or an emergency. I cannot imagine. We had 4 maydays with
Yeah.
like 5 firefighters involved at the same time. Like, who's gonna get priority? I have no idea. Because I know that your radio, if you push the button, you have radio priority. You can
For
cut
a
on
little
everybody
while.
else.
For
We get 10
how many
seconds,
seconds? So, is
but
it
every
10
time
seconds?
I push the talk button, every
You
time
get
I push
another
that,
10 seconds. Yeah.
I cut everybody out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cut everybody out. So
Yeah.
again, 4 maydays at the same time, and 5 firefighters trying to talk and say goodbye to their wives or whatever. I cannot imagine how to better handle these situations. Like, I don't
Or
think there's a
husband, partner. Goodbye to their partner.
they them. Yes.
Recommendation 14. Municipalities should ensure construction. This is the big one. This is my soapbox. Construction and or demolition is done in accordance with NFPA 241, the standard for safeguarding construction, alteration, and demolition operations. This is a huge problem in North America. We've had dozens and dozens and dozens of large building fires during construction, and the problem is enforcement of NFPA 10, education and enforcement of NFPA 241. Building deconstruction should be conducted in accordance with 241. Municipalities should ensure the construction companies conducting deconstruction have a demolition fire safety plan in accordance with 241. The following provisions of 241 were applicable to this incident. Fire protection standpipes in all new buildings with standpipes are required. Where standpipes exist in buildings altered or demolished, such standpipes shall be maintained in conformity with the progress of the building and construction in a manner that they are always ready for use. In this incident, the standpipe was completely inoperable. Safeguarding demolition operations, smoking. Smoking shall be prohibited throughout the demolition area. It is believed construction employees were smoking in the area where the fire began. Safeguarding construction and alteration operations. Fire protection during demolition system operations says, where a building is equipped with sprinklers, the sprinkler protection shall be retained in service as long as the condition requires the use of sprinklers exists. This incident, the structure was originally equipped with sprinklers, but subsequent to the demolition, the only sprinkler system was partially removed and made inoperable. Safeguarding, another one says 10.8.4, standpipes shall be maintained in conformity with the progress of demolition and activity in such a manner they're always ready for fire department use. And we already know that this standpipe was completely inoperable. And this has been a problem. It's still a problem. And the big problem is it costs millions of dollars. But this is where the huge danger to firefighters is you have a building that's built to burn. It's a lumber yard or whatever. And firefighters go in there to try to put it out and get trapped and get killed. And maybe civilians too, because there's been quite a few of those. We have the
and this is
crane
why,
rescues and sorry.
Well, just going to say this point that you're talking about is why the pre-plans, as much as I bug you that I hate pre-plans, they're important when there's modifications to buildings going on. And even if it's not an official pre-plan, you can go there as a company and just kind of get the wherewithal. And this also proves reinforces that you need to remember that the rest of the world doesn't have fire in their foreground, right? They don't care that it's like no smoking. They're like, I want to smoke, I'm smoking. What's the worst that could happen? I get a slap from my boss? Well, no, the worst that can happen is this, right? But they're not thinking about this when they see a no smoking sign. It's and like they don't understand or care. Well, what do we need these sprinklers and what do we need these standpipes? And like, wouldn't this be an awesome place? I can get all the way up to the 15th floor with my air hose if I put it in this pipe. And and my point, I always bring this up with high-rise buildings is don't put all your trust and faith in the building. You need to be prepared to go fight a fire on the 27th floor and the fire pump not work. What do you do then? You have to be ready for that. The elevator not work, all that kind of stuff. Don't put all your faith in, well, it has a fire pump. What do I need to worry about it for?
Yeah, we had the arena in Rocky Mountain House. They did a huge renovation and demolition and all that kind of stuff. And the old arena, which is a bow truss string roof that they kept, it was between the two other buildings. And they'd put all kinds of construction material and furniture and whatever in there, and we would walk through every once in a while and do an inspection of the construction as authority having jurisdiction, and we found they had a bit of a kitchen set up in there with a coffee pot and a microwave and some chairs and all this kind of stuff. And we're going, first of all, you can't store stuff in here. It's not a storage building. It's a hockey arena without sprinklers. They were going to add sprinklers. And you can't be eating in here and cooking and lounging because this is not a safe space. And they were pretty upset about that. And we kept walking through there and catching stuff all the time. And it's like, and they block walls off and you couldn't get out or whatever. So you have to be so diligent. And that takes a ton of resources to do it.
Yeah, you're talking about when you were the chief there, you had one building to worry about.
Yeah, we didn't have a ton, right?
Yeah.
A small city, right? I mean, or a small town.
Now try to do that in Manhattan.
Well,
or
divide
or
and conquer.
Or
one bite at a time. Lots of inspectors.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, well, your taxes just went up because you need to hire more inspectors.
That's hey, ask the people in Maui if they would pay more taxes now.
Well, now they probably would. Ask them 10 years ago. Yeah. Anyways.
Yep.
Number 15, municipalities should develop a reporting system to inform the fire department of any ongoing unique building construction activities, such as deconstruction or asbestos abatement, that would adversely affect a fire response. Fire department should also be notified as these stages of these activities progress.
Wouldn't that be nice if all the departments would work together and municipalities?
Yeah, like this is another one that like it sounds really good, but with all the bureaucratic red tape, and like you send an email to this guy and then he has to send it to this guy, and by the time it gets to the people that matter, it's probably too late anyways. Like,
Too late.
how many times is there like a road under construction, and by the time by the time the fire department gets told, hey, this road's closed for construction, it's back open again.
Yep.
Yeah, all these NIOSH reports, we've been talking about this, like they're in the perfect world, you should do this. Or
I
you
mean,
should
it's
have
right.
done that.
I mean, they should develop, and there should be
Yeah,
a system.
absolutely. Yeah.
But it would be nice if there
It's-
was.
It's a minimum standard. This is the minimum you should be doing.
Well, number 16, I can read this here. Municipalities should establish a system for property owners to notify the fire department when fire protection suppression systems are taken out of service. And there's cities that they do that. They have the hotline or drill line or whatever it's
Yep.
called, right? And then a responsible building owner or a responsible fire suppression company calls dispatch and says, hey, we're doing a fire drill, don't set the fire trucks, or hey, we're taking something out of service here, just a heads up if something comes in that might be serious. And right, so stuff like that happens all over the world. I'm not sure, again, it's probably also the size of the city. Like, by informing the fire department, they inform dispatch, but not the individual companies, right? So I don't
Okay.
know who's testing what, right?
So my LinkedIn account a week ago or so. Remember the fire at the Home Depot in San Jose, California?
Yes.
And they tried to fight the fire and they couldn't control it and the building burned down. The chief luckily saved his guys and got him out. An investigation revealed the company had failed to maintain its sprinkler system. In addition to completely destroying the nearly 99,000 square foot property, it also led to $17 million in inventory losses and $1.3 million in civil penalties and other fines by the municipality. This is Home Depot not maintaining their sprinkler system.
What do you think they care about more? The 17 million of product they lost, or the 1 million in fines they got?
You can't.
It's a franchise,
can't make this
right?
stuff up.
Yeah, but Paul, it's a franchise. So somebody owns that specific Home Depot or whatever, Canadian Tire. That person is associated with the big company, but it's not the big company. The big company just wants to make money, and whoever owns that building wants to make more money. So obviously, that is a big problem. Also, and we talked about this earlier, when I build a whatever Home Depot and I put stuff in there initially, that's what I'm building my fire suppression system to. Sprinklers, flows, all this stuff. But now I'm in the business for 10 years and my shelves are exploding. I put more shelving in there. There's more stuff stored. And now I have a higher fire load than my suppression system was built for. And that's when stuff happens. Plus, they build the big box stores outside the municipalities where volunteer fire department XYZ just wants to. That's not even trained to do this, right? So,
and part of the overall problem in this incident, in the Home Depot one, whatever you want, like, the general member of the public doesn't have risk management and the fire department on the tip of their brain like Paul does. Paul drives around and thinks about fires at Home Depot. And I mean, you're driving down the street and you're at a red light and look over and you in your head go, what would I do if that building was on fire? Nobody in the car next to you is thinking that. Nobody. Right?
So it's no politicians, no business people.
I mean, it's just like some civil engineers probably drive down the road and say, who designed this road? They're stupid. Well, we don't think of that. Well, sometimes we think of that, but you know what I mean? Like this stuff is on Paul's mind. This stuff's on our mind. It's not on Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith just wants the fire truck to show up when she calls 911.
And but Home Depot has a full-time guy that's in charge of this. You know it.
Sure.
They have a risk manager.
Yeah, and does the Home Depot risk manager guy go from store to store to store to store to store every day checking them? No, they have a rule in place saying do something, just like we have laws in place that say don't smoke in your construction site and don't take your fire suppression system out of service. We can't trust everybody to follow all the rules. And the day that they don't is the day they have a fire. That's just the way it works.
So one last thing about the standpipe system here, and I heard this just today about this fire, that when the workers cut the standpipe, it was in the basement. That's where they probably fed all the lines through. So what the fire department did while trying to get water up there, they flooded the basement 2 floors. Yeah,
Lots of water in the basement.
lots of water in the basement. Yeah.
So another note, sad note we can add to this podcast is it was a double line of duty death, but it was almost a triple line of duty death because the lieutenant working that day of Engine 24 that these guys that died responded on in 2009 committed suicide.
Oh shit.
Yep.
And part of
'Cause I
that
lost
was
my
because
guy.
of how
It's
he
my
felt.
fault. Yeah.
Retired in 2000. Sorry, I might have the date right, but he or maybe 2011. He retired in 2009, and I think committed suicide in 2011.
That was the officer that crawled away from them and yelled
Yeah.
and
I
said,
think
"I'm
so,
here,
yeah.
follow me out."
Yep.
Yeah,
I got to get
it
more
was-
air, and they didn't
It
go
was a
with them.
sad situation for.
Bad note.
I mean, one of the firefighters was working overtime or something like that. It was just a bad deal.
but they
wasn't
were
even his-
very senior, right? One of them was like
I
27-year
think
veteran.
well, one of them was the senior man. I think I think he was the senior guy on Engine 24 and was working overtime or something, which is why he was in the back of the truck and not driving like he normally did. And the other guy, I think, was detailed from Ladder 5, which is in the same firehouse. And yeah, it was just
No, good comment. Something to keep in mind. That's why we do the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Try to
And
educate.
another
people.
thing we probably don't keep track of is like all the guys that worked in there were probably exposed to the asbestos
Right.
inside the building, right?
Yep.
So that's another thing. Like if you're 5 floor below, but you're walking through all these cordoned off areas that are, designed for decon, you will get some exposure for sure, right? So
Well, look
who
at
knows?
the death toll for 9/11 related illness for
Yeah.
firefighters and police has surpassed how many were killed that day. It was 343, and it's 370 or something now.
yeah.
That guys have died from illness acquired during the rescue firefight operation.
And so one of the guys that died, his dad actually took it upon himself to do like a big investigation and wrote a whole book about this fire and the way things work in New York. I don't want to get into a whole bunch, use the wrong words, but it's into the factors that affected what happened here, and from the fire department point of view and the building point of view. So the title of the book is called "The Fix Is In: The Deutsche Bank Building Fire Conspiracy." And I think you can get it on Amazon or whatever. I have it. I've read a whole bunch of it. I don't know if I finished it yet, but it's there's a lot of first-hand reports from guys that were there, and this fallen firefighter's father wrote this whole book.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Got a book recommendation here.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And they didn't even pay us to say it. So
No, that's
Unlike-
right. We
unlike
don't
Blue
get
Card.
anything.
Like Blue Card.
Yeah, they don't pay us anything. So
they should
Thank
pay
you.
you.
No, because then we wouldn't be able to use these. This has to be free. Yeah, because we don't make
All right,
money
well.
off of someone else's report. You want to wrap it up, Doug? Since you
Yeah,
did it
sure.
all?
Thanks everyone listening for another episode. Give us a like or a thumbs up or a star or whatever is on the app you listen to, and we're slowly growing, and we all enjoy doing this. So thanks for listening. Give us some feedback. It's always nice to hear that. Yeah. Anyways, stay low and go.
Be safe. Be safe out there.
It's
Stole it
dangerous.
from you.
That's
Yeah.
why it's fun.
Ah,
All right.